Hi, this is Scott Schneider and welcome to the MECFS Underground. In this video I'm going to go ahead and talk about what it is like to have MECFS. It seems like it's kind of a big jump between my first basic video explaining what MECFS is over to telling everybody what it's like to have it. One might think there'd be a few more definitions that I need to throw in. But this is a personal type of video series, and so part of my aim is to mix that in along with different informational videos to spread awareness about MECFS. And so in this particular video, I'm going to get right down and dirty into it and discuss how it is that I'm affected by MECFS. So, whatever the subject of what is MECFS and what it's like for people to have MECFS comes up, there's a tendency for there to be a preface to that statement or a disclaimer stating that MECFS symptoms basically vary from person to person, and so it's really hard to describe the illness and define it, how each person actually has it and deals with it, and how people experience it. Now that's somewhat true in the sense that there are basically symptoms that everyone has that may be different from the other person they may talk to who has MECFS. You could put a bunch of people, let's say 100 people together in a room, and they could discuss what symptoms they may have, and for any number of people they may have different kinds of what I call side symptoms or accompanying symptoms, and that could be, some people could have major light and sound sensitivity, while others may have more issues with headaches and vertigo. And some people may have POTS, which is one of the things we discussed in the first video, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where a person's body is unable to hold their balance when they go from sitting to standing position because the heart rate isn't able to keep up. The circulatory system isn't able to perfuse blood and oxygenation to all extremities of the body quickly enough due to perfusion issues because of MECFS. That kind of thing tends to be a commonplace with this illness, and the symptoms and the kind of symptoms and the severity and the ranges can be from person to person, can really be quite variable. However, having said that, as I did state in the first video and showed on more than one slide, there's a certain set of core symptoms that goes into a diagnosis for MECFS, and that's whether or not you are being diagnosed by the international consensus in a European country, or the Canadian consensus in Canada, or the United States under the auspices of the National Academies of Medicine. There are basically 5 or 6 core symptoms that pretty much every MECFS person may have, or generally the majority of them will have a majority of that checklist of symptoms. And it may be stated differently with each different defining body in regard to how it's diagnosed and how it shows up in the person, and how it's stated to be seen in each individual under each different case definition. However, it is basically, in the end, they're all fairly similarly grouped symptoms that just about everybody with ME/CFS will have. And of course, the biggest one starting out with that is one that there's one in particular that every single person's going to have with ME/CFS, and that is the extreme exhaustion. Now, it can vary between absolutely debilitating exhaustion, where a person is pretty much laid up in bed and is unable to do anything else, even possibly hear or see, have to have a blindfold over their heads, over their eyes, and have earplugs in. To a person maybe who has a mild case, where they may be able to do a number of activities of daily living over a few hours, and then have exhaustion afterwards that knocks them out and has them sitting on a couch for a day or the rest of the day, and they may actually recover and be able to do some of those things again the next day, only to tire out. So that's the very other end of the scale. So when we talk about all of that, when I talk about the core symptoms, of course, we're talking about, aside from the exhaustion, of course, we have, associated with the exhaustion, we have the post-exertional malaise, which is the one distinguishable characteristic of the disease that is commonplace also for everybody and accompanies the exhaustion. So you can't have the exhaustion without the post-exertional malaise. One or the other, one comes with the other. And that's actually an established core symptom of the illness, no matter what definition it is under. Other core symptoms people will tend to have just about tend to have 75% of the time. If you put 100 people in the room, you can group them together, and they'll groups of people within that 100 will have these overlapping symptoms. The symptoms tend to be cognitive impairment, disturbed sleep, and muscle pain. And I understand those are 4, but if you throw that in with the post-exertional malaise, and you get 5, and then the POTS is 6. So there tend to be 5 to 6 symptoms, depending upon what case definition you use, that actually do overlap with most people, and you could form subgroups of people that have like symptoms with those core symptoms sort of checked off on the list, tending to be groups. A group of maybe has 3 out of the 5, another group may have 4 out of the 5, another group may have 5 of the 5, or they may have 3 out of the 5 but different varying types. So having said all of that, I've set the stage for what it is that I'm going to talk about in myself. Because, like I just stated, if you put 100 people with ME/CFS together in a room, you're going to find that all of them are probably going to be able to relate to each other's symptoms, although not everybody in the room is going to have 1 or 2 particular symptoms, while everybody else in the room would. And so, for me, what I'm going to do is start out with the symptom that is the most damaging and is the core symptom of the illness, that is the exhaustion. And for me, the exhaustion tends to be, and I think that many ME/CFS people would agree with this, tends to be one where it's not one of, well, I'm tired after lunch because I just ate too many carbs or something. I ate too much pasta and I want to fall asleep on the couch and then I'll get up and be fine after half an hour. It's not where I'm sitting, doing my job after lunch, etc., too, and I nod off for 15 seconds and then my body recovers and I'm fine. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about tired. It's not about, I wake up one day because I did it, I ran around the block yesterday, so I'm kind of, my body's a little bit, I feel a little fatigued, but I can do all my normal activities and it's not going to bother me too much. That's not the kind of exhaustion that I'm talking about. Of course, the kind of exhaustion that I'm talking about is is with ME/CFS is it's a complete and total debilitating exhaustion. It's like it goes down to the bone. It pretty much it pretty much is like your gas tank is empty. You have no, your phone battery is gone. You don't have anything on the reserve, and that kind of exhaustion is so extraordinarily destructive because it pretty much goes to the core of the muscles, and that's where it comes from. Because as science has emerged over the past, especially 5 years, in the United States, as we've been paying more attention to the illness, uh, we have discovered, and it's been understood before this, but more attention's been focused on it, and other studies have borne this out, the mitochondrial dysfunction of the muscles. And for those of you who aren't familiar with what the mitochondria is it's inside the muscular cells. It's the powerhouse of the cell. It takes oxygen and nutrients and converts it to energy. ATP is one form of that. It's an enzyme that tends to be converted in the mitochondrial cell, and that powers the muscles. The combination of mitochondrial dysfunction as well as poor blood oxygenation, due to the fact that, as I referenced before with POTS, the heart pumps normally but isn't able to circulate blood to the entire body, and isn't able to circulate normal blood oxygenation because of issues with getting blood circulated and perfused to all the muscles, as well as being the red blood cells not being able to carry oxygen to the extremities properly. So you take all that together and you get the exhaustion. So when we talk about exhaustion with ME/CFS, particularly what those of us with ME/CFS experience, it's not, it is completely and totally, absolutely debilitating. It's like you're a machine and you've run out of electricity. It's pretty much just, there is, even as I'm talking right now, my body is completely loaded with this sense that I have absolute and total exhaustion, lack of being able to dig any kind of deep energy reserves out of my body. As I'm talking, I'm basically, it's like my energy is expelling out of my mouth. I can feel my body literally just tire as I'm chatting with you. And so that would be the exhaustion part of ME/CFS. And the part where it causes the most problems, of course, is not only the fact that people will sleep for 12 hours, or some people will never get out of bed. In the most catastrophic states, will never get out of bed, but people will sleep 12 hours and they will get up and they will still have the same level of exhaustion they had the day before. There'll be no recovery. Or if the recovery is there, for example, for myself, I get med treatment, so I have some meds that help me sleep. I get some recovery, so I can get some slight recovery out of sleeping long enough, as long as the medication kicks in okay and it works fine. And that type of exhaustion when waking up prevents a person from not only carrying out their normal daily activities, but also from carrying out simple tasks that most people take for granted, such as lifting, things as small as 3 to 5 pounds, or not even, and not at all in the most catastrophic situations, closing a door, even a cupboard door. Right now my cupboard doors, they don't latch, but if I open and close my cupboard doors just to put something in and out, on top of just putting something into the cupboard door, causing my muscles to become extremely exhausted, actually opening and closing the cupboard door will leave me feeling an extra set of exhausted symptoms as well. So I'll walk away and I will feel like I have literally opened and closed a window 50 times just from closing a cupboard door. It's very devastating, and so that is when we're talking about that type of exhaustion. You can understand how it is that people can't walk, they can't lift, they can't move, they can't go shopping, they can't clean their bathrooms, kitchens, do dishes, keep up, make their own meals. And of course, all this varies between person to person. Some people are able to do those things. A good majority of people with ME/CFS have big struggles with that kind of stuff, and probably 25% or more either can do it on a very limited basis or not at all. So we go from the exhaustion, which again is like it's almost like a gasp. I'm gasping for air. It's like I'm underwater. I'm trying to keep up with the energy level, but it's like I feel like I'm drowning because my body cannot keep up with the amount of energy that's being expended just from normal conversation. And then that'll be followed up, of course, by the post-exertional malaise, which is the crash that occurs within usually sometimes 3 to 4 hours, but more often 12 to 24 to 48 hours after any set of activities that may cause or exacerbate that energy depletion. And for most people with ME/CFS, it's just about anything you can do. Although the post-exertional malaise will range from mild to moderate to severe, depending upon, of course, what activities you're carrying out, what level of energy depletion that you have before you do the activities, and how much actual post-exertional malaise you had before you did those activities to worsen and reinforce the post-exertional malaise that you had going for you. So it can be a snowball effect because you can use up a lot of energy just doing you can use up a lot of energy just doing basically just living, sitting on a couch and getting up and doing menial things in the daytime. And then you could do some activities like cleaning the house or sweeping the floor, vacuuming, something like that. And that will deplete your energy further, and then that will cause resulting post-exertional malaise. And then if you do something else the next day that is the same or is a similar activities, then you will have even less energy and you will have even more post-exertional malaise the day after that, to the point to where people will do 2 or 3 days of activities and seem like they're doing just fine, even though they may be suffering, and then all of a sudden they won't be able to do anything. People who have the most catastrophic form of the illness, that's why they're not able to get out of bed. They literally cannot withstand even the slightest stimulation. It causes post-exertional malaise for them. And when we talk about post-exertional malaise, what are we talking about? We're talking about the energy crash. So we talk about energy crash with post-exertional malaise, which means that the energy that you may have had, the very little energy that you may have had going for you going into a set of activities is completely depleted. You have even more exhaustion the next day, so you can do less. So what you were doing the day before can't be repeated, or it can't be repeated at the same level or volume, or if it is repeated, it's not repeated as efficiently. And once you've reached that stage where you're repeating post-exertional malaise constantly over and over and over again, of course, you are on that roller coaster ride downward toward non-function. And if you don't quit those activities or pull back on what you're doing to ease up on the post-exertional malaise and continue depleting your very fragile energy levels that are already extremely low. It's a very complicated process, and one that is, how do I put it? It is extremely difficult and disconcerting to first start dealing with it and then have to get used to it. It is something that can lead to a huge amount of confusion when first developing the illness symptoms, because it is so confounding. It's nothing like anything It's unlike anything that anybody has ever experienced on Earth. Any human being who has not experienced it, it's almost like living in a different, in an alternate universe. One where you want your body to do everything that you thought you could do before, or wanted to do before, or are used to doing, and it just won't do it. And then all of a sudden one day you'll do a bunch of things, and the next day you can't do them anymore again. And or you do a bunch of things for 5 straight days, and you're thinking, okay, I'm back to normal. I'm doing good. I'm functioning. I'm focusing. I'm improved. I'm energy back. And then day 6, crash. You're on the couch. You can't do a thing. Your muscles won't move. They won't function. You can't move them. They move slowly. Their energy is completely depleted, and everything you had in those 5 days is gone. So, and that is one of the most empty feelings in the world for a person to have, because it's almost like the bottom's dropped out of your entire being, your entire existence. Because what was once just the day before, you felt like you were flying, you were getting back to what you needed to be, where the world expects you to be, where people think that you should be doing. People expect you to be able to carry out certain functions, and not be lazy, and not this, and not act like you're just a whiny little what, and you can't lift a finger because there's something wrong with you. You're doing fine, and all of a sudden, bam, you're back to where you were. You're not able to do anything. And then you have to face the fact, well, what is wrong with me? What's wrong with my body? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Why can't I do the things I did yesterday? So post-exertional malaise is a very devastating and very distinguishable and very powerful thing. And it's also a very demoralizing type of thing that people with ME/CFS experience, and it's a strongly misunderstood thing. In absence of, with just the exhaustion, people would be able to do more things with ME/CFS than they do, because the post-exertional malaise is what actually takes the exhaustion and exacerbates it even more. It makes it 10 times worse. It actually magnifies the exhaustion. And then along with magnifying the exhaustion, it magnifies all the other symptoms that a person may have with ME/CFS, including, and that may include the core symptoms of that I discussed earlier in the video. You put all those people in a room, and they have 3 out of 5 of the core symptoms, including they all have the exhaustion and the post-exertional malaise. Then 50 of those people have POTS and cognitive impairment. So you take all those people and you put them in another room, and you put them on an exercise bike, and they all start running on an exercise bike, and they go until they're maxed out. Next day they wake up, and they're all going to have some degree of post-exertional malaise. It may be milder for some people who have a milder case of the illness, and it may be catastrophic for those who have a more severe case of the illness. In tandem, all of those people in the group and all together are going to be non-functional to a greater degree than they were the day before, and many of them will almost be non-functional, period, and probably will not be able to get out of bed. So what tends to happen is what tends to happen is you have all of those core symptoms that I talked about, the POTS and the cognitive impairments. Those things will be exploded as well, in about the same degree and manner, same intensity as the post-exertional malaise and the debilitation from running on the bike. And so all of those things come together in concert. So not only do you get the post-exertional malaise and the energy crash, you get the exacerbating symptoms, which pretty much all together start beating a person into the ground like a drum. if I want to liken it to a person who doesn't ever experience any of this stuff, the constellation of symptoms that occurs, especially after a severe post-exertional malaise and energy crash, think of the worst flu you've ever had, or think of the worst hangover you've ever had. I think for most people who are active and are healthy and wouldn't have the slightest clue what PEM is like, think of the worst of the worst hangover you've ever had, and that is pretty much now have that it follow you everywhere all day long, days and days and days, relentless for hours, affect your sleep, everything. That's pretty much, in a nutshell, what it's like to have a basic post-exertional crash. So, in getting all of these types of symptoms down, it's important to remember that even though there's a variable, that they vary between individual and individual, the set of core symptoms they'll tend to have will overlap. And then when post-exertional malaise is particularly exacerbated, all of those symptoms will be heightened 10 times, in some people probably 100 times, depending upon the severity and what they've done. It's a very, very, very punishing disease. Me and myself in particular, I don't have POTS, but I do have muscle pain, and it's an extraordinary symptom of this disease. It's very, very, very evident, and it's very pointed, and it's very noticeable. And most of that pain is in the upper part of my body, where the neck and where my head, neck, and shoulders come together. And I can understand why that occurs. When I first few years that I had ME/CFS, I didn't understand why is it the upper part of my body is so it is giving me so many problems. Before I go further into that, and I'm sorry again about the nose, for whatever reason when I talk on these things I start getting, I don't know, I start getting, having to rub it. Anyway, for me the muscle pain, I mean, it is extraordinarily intense muscle pain. It's like I'm walking around like somebody, it feels like somebody literally kicked me in the back of the head and the cervical spinal junction of the neck. That's what it feels. It feels like I literally, and that's the typical everyday, day and night, no matter what happens to me, even in my best days. That's what it feels like. Somebody took a shoe. Actually, they had it, somebody put the shoe on and they kicked me right back there. Now, as I get PEM and I do things, first of all, as I start doing things and my energy level depletes, those muscles get worse and worse. They get more and more and more sore. And of course, when I talk about the muscle pain, of course, it's like the exhaustion. It's like it's a deep muscle pain. It literally feels, again, like I've been kicked there, or like I have a deep bruise on all parts of my body, from my neck across my shoulders to the top half of my back. On my best days, it'll just be at the top of my shoulders, and basically in my neck area. But as I do things with my head, neck, and move around, and it doesn't, it can, of course, it can vary from day to day. On a good day, I could do a bunch of light things around the house, and I could tolerate them. But as I do them, it's almost like a frog in a boiling pot of water. I don't like that saying, but that's the way the saying goes. in a boiling pot of water. And it ends up where it just keeps intensity increasing and increasing. And I just have to be very aware somatically of where the pain level is, because the pain level can tell me where it is I may need to quit and when it's time for me to stop. And I've gotten a lot better at doing that. I'm a very ambitious person, if you haven't been able to figure that out. And I've been able to push ahead and do things. I push through my illness symptoms with a great deal of willpower at times. But what happens when I start getting the pain levels to go up, and then I start noticing that if I go too far with it, then I'll have a great deal of PEM the next day, and it'll have more PEM. So my aim is to do things without that pain increasing to the point to where it becomes intolerable. But if it does, and I sit down, it can tend to go away. However, that's on a good day. On days when I'm most severe, that pain literally engulfs my head, my neck, my upper back. It feels like I have been hit in the back of the head with a 2x4. It feels like, or someone took. I've had it where feels like I've lit my neck on fire with a match. Literally, there's a powder keg back there, and somebody's lit a match to my head. I will oftentimes, when I have exacerbation of PEM and exhaustion, will have extremely tight muscles, especially around the back of the head, but also around the front as well. And I'll have some accompanying light sensitivity along with that. Light sensitivity for me isn't a big issue, although it's enough. You could probably see it in this video. I'm always crunching my eyes like this. It's not because of the sun through the window. It's just because I have some light sensitivity. But getting back to the pain, I will liken what I experience with the pain of this illness to being absolute torture. Because of the fact that it feels like I am being assaulted. Like I've been hit by a baseball bat in the back of the neck and the head. I have spent many days, and number of days, even lately, in between making videos and etc., where I feel like someone's literally thrown me onto the ground and stomped on me with stilettos. Like I have had a gang of thugs just throw me to the ground and start beating on me. That's literally how it feels. And I have to get up and move around and do my things every day feeling like that. When I was homeless, I walked around on certain days like that. Of course, I took it easier than I mean, if I didn't have to do something, I didn't do it. And there were days when I just sat in a chair doing nothing, or in my car doing nothing, depending upon where I was. But I absolutely, positively had to quit doing things because I was prevented by it due to the fact that it felt like I was thrown up against a wall. And so I spent a lot of days feeling like I've had the SHIT beat out of me. And so for me, that's one of the biggest symptoms that I have. And I will do just about anything to prevent myself from getting into that situation. The unfortunate thing about life is, and about living life alone as I am, especially when I was homeless, or when I didn't have protection like I do at this point with a roof over my head, is that there was not always a way to keep myself from having to go through that and take on the things I needed to take on, because there's nobody to rescue me from all of that. So I do what I have to do, I do what I can do, I push through as I can, I manage it as I can, but the powers that be don't necessarily always let me stay out of that prison. And we're living in a world that doesn't understand this illness, and I don't even know that, all of you who are watching this. And so that's what happens when we have a world full of people who don't understand what those of us with ME, CFS are going through, and the torture that we deal with. So I've let you into basically I've given you a pretty good idea of the world that I live and navigate in, or at least the world that I try to exist in, that survive in every single day, and what that's like. Some of the other symptoms I have the cognitive impairments, as you can tell. You may see those on this video. I tend to glitch or stumble, or I have trouble maybe my thoughts together briefly. I don't have severe cognitive impairment like other people do. It's noticeable on tests. If I were to test it, I'm noticeably slower at memorizing things and counting things and doing things and trying to keep track of things than I ever used to be before I was ill. I was actually quite sharp. I was able to hold a lot of different types of information and memory in my mind before I was ill. But now that I am ill, there are that's much I'm gonna put it less sharp. And see, I'm getting tired. I'm not unable to come up with the word. I never had a problem with that before I was ill. But anyway, cognitive impairment, and then the sleep disturbance, which is alleviated by my medication on most days, except when I have aggravated symptoms. When I've done too much activity, I will go to sleep. And even with the aid of my medications, my muscles will be so sore, tired, swollen, etc., that they will pretty much cause me to toss and turn in my sleep. And just the basic existence of the illness, just the intensity of the illness will increase my sleep disturbance enough, in concert with the muscle pain, where it all kind of exacerbates together in one big treadmill, if you will, and one big ball of wax, and causes me to not sleep as well. And then, of course, I'll wake up the next day and be more exhausted and not refreshed, just due to and then I'll have the PEM crash. And then all of that will happen because I either have been doing too much for too many days, or because that particular day I did too much. And I will see that spike when I sleep, and I will feel that, and I'll have what are termed in the medical biz as breakthrough symptoms. They'll break through my treatment, and then they'll increase my illness, and then cause further problems in my sleep. Now, that, from what I've been able to piece together, that sleep disturbance doesn't cause the PEM. It doesn't cause further exhaustion the next day. It doesn't cause exacerbation of symptoms the next day. I could, like I said in the beginning of the video, and explained on the last video, I could sit there and lay in bed for 24 hours, and the PEM would occur anyway. It wouldn't matter. They would be there. The exhaustion, the increased symptoms would be there. The uptick in all of the exacerbation would be there. But the sleep disturbance itself is a symptom of the disorder that just about everyone has as well. That is kind of a core symptom that a lot of us experience. And if I don't, absent of anything else that I do, if I exacerbate the illness, you'll get the exacerbated PEM, the exacerbated exhaustion. The exacerbated, for me, there will be an increase in cognitive impairment. I will have difficulty thinking straight, and I won't be able to perform mental tasks like making videos the next day so much, and there'll also be that sleep disturbance. So all of those things are an increase in the intensity of the MECFS because I'm overdoing what it is that my body capacity is for tolerating life activities with the disease. So it's a incredibly tough maze to navigate through, and it's a difficult thing to have to deal with. But I hope I have given you some insight into how these symptoms manifest themselves here in the last two videos. Because in doing so, I hope that I have given at least a glimpse of what it is that I deal with as a person with MECFS, and then by doing so, you'll be able to help provide empathy and also understand, commiserate, and give better care to people